here, which is just recapping some minor signings, not necessarily minor signings, just minor moves and minor news around the league that I wanted to talk about and I thought was interesting, but again didn't necessarily deserve its an own segment for itself. So the first one here, Jesse Winker. Jesse Winker signed a minor league deal with the Nationals. I think this is a really interesting thing. Jesse Winker obviously was a really good player with the Reds a few years ago. Was an all-star, I believe. Just a really, really solid player. Could never really hit. Was one of the better players in the league against right-handed pitchers. Was just really good in that way, in that role for the Reds. Got traded to the Brewers. Didn't go very well. Got traded to the Mariners. Didn't go very well. Now is signing a minor league deal with the Nationals. It's kind of similar to what the Nationals did with Joey Gallo before in the offseason, signing him. Both are left-handed bats who have struggled in the past, and they're hoping they can get something out of them. And if the Nationals do, they can either make them a part of their core, which is coming up in the next few years because of their rebuild, or trade them at the deadline for someone good and try to rebuild that way. So I thought it was interesting, especially for the Nationals to sign Winker of all things. So yeah, I thought it was interesting. I thought it was a good low risk signing for the Nationals for a team that really needs it like them. Next, we have the Yankees. They claim Jordan Groshans off waivers. He's a former top Toronto prospect, which is why I wanted to talk about this. He was involved with a trade to the Miami either a year or 2 years ago for some relievers. Now he had fallen off in the prospect rankings a little bit. He struggled to hit in the major league level. That was the same with Toronto and the same with Miami, both in AAA and the major leagues. But I think it's interesting the Yankees claiming him out of all people. Maybe they see something in him. Maybe they just wanted some depth. Overall, I just think it's interesting. The Yankees have done this a lot this offseason, just claiming guys to add depth to that rotation. Not rotation, sorry, the roster. I mean, they claimed Jeter Downs before in the offseason, which is hilarious considering claiming a player named Jeter off waivers is very, very funny because Jeter, you get it. Also, he was a top Red Sox prospect, so he was part of one of the big parts of the Mookie Betts trade, so that was fun. I guess that was very fun for Red Sox fans to watch that. But yeah, I just think it's interesting about the Yankees keep doing this. I just think it's depth, and maybe they see something in him, and maybe they, yeah, maybe they think they can fix him in a way. I think it's kind of a nothing signing, but I think it was interesting to talk about just because of the history there. The Angels, another interesting one that I want to talk about. They gave an MILB deal, minor league deal, to Drew Pomeranz. So he signed a big contract with the Padres a few years ago. Was pretty good to start out with, but kind of fought injuries the past 2 years. But as I said before, that was pretty good. The Angels have been building a good bullpen this year, signing Adam Simber, giving a big deal to Robert Stevenson, who probably slots in as either the closer or the number 2 guy. They have Carlos Estevez, who's a really good closer as well. So yeah, I think it's interesting. I thought, if it's an MILB deal, so if it doesn't work out well, you can just move on. But I thought the potential was really interesting there with just his history. So yeah, I thought it was interesting for the Angels. I thought the potential for it was interesting. Um, I think he could be really good. I'm not sure if the Angels are the organization to bring that out of him, but I still think it was interesting and a good low risk signing for Halos. Daniel Bard, reliever for the Rockies, one of their good players, which is not many, but one of their good players. He tore his meniscus, which is pretty rough. Yeah, he's out a few weeks now. I think he's going to be a major part of that Rockies bullpen. Probably the only part because, again, they're really, really bad. But he could have gotten a nice prospect at the deadline. So I think this is kind of a little bit of a hit to the Rockies if he doesn't perform well after the injury. But again, it's the Rockies. They're kind of just there. They don't really do much. They just kind of exist. But I still thought it was interesting because he is a good reliever, and he is good. Excuse me. So yeah. Corey Knebel, the White Sox. Corey Knebel signed with the White Sox. This is another interesting one. He was a really good pitcher with the Brewers, with the Dodgers, with the Phillies. He was a good reliever for a little while. Closer, eighth inning guy, setup guy, just late inning guy. But he fought injuries. The White Sox signing was interesting. Obviously, the White Sox are not going to be very good, but they're kind of taking a flyer on him, seeing if he can bring something out. They can bring something out of him, and then probably flip him at the deadline. They've done this with some other players as well, kind of like Jesse Chavez, like Paul DeYoung. Just kind of getting low risk guys and trying to see if there's anything left. And if there is, they can flip him. And if he performs well, they can flip him for the deadline and get a good prospect. And if there's not, they just move on. And it helps their tank because the White Sox are obviously tanking. They're rebuilding phase right now. They're not very good. We've all heard this before. We know this. Makes sense. They also signed Dominic Leone. He was a pretty good reliever for my Mets last year, which I did not expect. It was interesting that he didn't get a bigger signing. He played with 3 teams, played with the Angels, and he played with the Mariners. Good signing for them. Again, just a good, fine reliever in the bullpen who, if he's good, they can flip him at the deadline for a solid prospect, and if he's not, they just move on. These are the type of moves I like rebuilding teams making. Teams like the White Sox. So I like this a lot. I like what they're doing. I've liked what Chris Getz has done so far as running the White Sox. I like that he's held on to Cease until he gets a prospect or a package he really, really wants. I like the Aaron Bummer signing, getting all those depth pieces, just fill out the roster, and maybe some of them can be good, like a Michael Soroka. Next, the Twins. They signed Jeff Brigham, just another part of that depth piece of that Twins bullpen. Trading for Justin Topa a few weeks back with the Mariners was really interesting. I thought it helped their bullpen a lot. They haven't done much moves this offseason, but the moves they have, I really did enjoy. So, yeah, I just think it was a nice, solid depth move for them in Minnesota. I like what they're doing. Next, we have something really interesting, which I want to talk about. It was kind of brewing for the past few months, but it finally did break here, and that is Rintaro Sasaki going to Stanford. So now, a lot of you, probably, I would say most of you, don't know who Rintaro Sasaki is. So he is probably the top Japanese prospect. Yeah, he's probably the top Japanese prospect. He's 18. So usually what Japanese prospects do is they go into the MPP draft, they get picked, they go with their career to the MPP, and if they're really good, they go to the MLB a few years later. But no, what he did was he did not go to the NPB draft, and he went straight to college, American college, Stanford. He went to Stanford. So, yeah, I think this is really interesting for him. He's going to be a top pick in whatever draft he's coming out of. I believe it's 2026, 2027. It's a really power hitting first baseman. I think it's going to be interesting to watch over the next few years if this becomes a trend in baseball with younger Japanese players or international players, as a matter of fact, not going to their own leagues, but going to colleges in America and then getting drafted in the MLB and kind of going their career course like that. Yeah, so I think this could start a precedent here. It's kind of the opposite of what a player like Carter Stewart did with the Braves. He got picked high with the Braves, couldn't come to an agreement on the contract. They didn't give him enough money, so he went to Japan and pitched over there and kind of got a major league contract right away and made some good money. But Rintaro is kind of doing the opposite, going to the MLB draft, going to get picked in the draft, obviously, probably going to be a first round pick in a few years. Going to Stanford, one of the better baseball programs in America, and just kind of starting his career like that. I think it's going to be, intriguing. I don't want to say interesting again because I've been saying that a lot. Intriguing to watch if this becomes a history with baseball, something new to happen with international prospects, and how it turns out. Will he flounder at Stanford in leagues like this, or will he become really good and kind of inspire a new generation of Japanese prospects to do this? I know Otani considered doing it before he did going to the MPB because they promised him he could do both hitting and pitching. I'd say that worked out pretty well for his career. So yeah, I just thought it was on the radar news story that was really interesting to watch and really interesting to think about. Just a top Japanese prospect going to the MLB draft, going to an American college, playing college baseball. So yeah, I really wanted to talk about it, and I thought it was super, super fun and gonna be super fun to watch over the next few years. What happens to him, and does this become more of a trend? Finally, some news that broke this morning: Justin Verlander. He's hurt again. He's he told some Astros reporters that he's behind in his schedule with throwing because he hurt his arm. So we don't know if he's going to be ready for opening day. Obviously, the Astros traded for him again from the Mets this offseason. Last deadline, I apologize, and going back to the Astros with this offseason. Now, he had some injury problems with the Mets. Obviously, he's not started off the season with them, and when he did come back at the start, he was not very good, which is why they probably ended up trading him. Yeah, also we had Tommy John, of course, before that, but then won the Cy Young, so I think that's all kind of done. But he's older. He has injury history with 2 Tommy John in his career. So I just think it's something to watch with the Astros. They're getting older. If Verlander's out, that pitching staff takes a big hit. They traded for him last deadline because they knew it was a unique situation for him to become available and to trade for him. Because of their pitching injuries and their pitching woes, really. So yeah, you look at if he is injured this year, if he does not pitch a lot or does not pitch well, I think it's gonna be looked at as one of the worst trades in recent history. The Mets got Drew Gilbert, who is one of the better outfield prospects in baseball right now. I mean, he hit so well with the Mets AAA team last year, in AA as well. He's gonna be starting with AAA. Will probably be up next this year. Be up later in the year, but I think he's going to be a star for the Mets. And the Mets traded Verlander because they knew they wanted to rebuild and get younger. And the Astros are the opposite. And trading a top prospect for a guy in Verlander who might not be 100% ever again and who's older, and you could have just re-signed if you match the Mets contract, I think is going to be looked at as a really bad decision for the next few years. And if he is hurt long term, it also helps the Mets because they won't have to pay $17.5 million on his vesting contract, which is if he pitches 140 innings. The Mets are definitely rooting for that. And I think, the trade it was a very good decision to trade Verlander, of course. Now, in hindsight, because of the injuries, how older he was getting, or the Mets are. So, yeah, it's unfortunate for Astros fans. I do like the Astros. I'm probably in the minority in that one, but it's unfortunate for them. It's unfortunate for the team as they were really counting on Verlander to yank the rotation with guys like Framber, guys like Christian Javier. They added Josh Hader to the bullpen, of course. The pitching staff was probably going to be improved. So yeah. So just recapping, Jesse Winker to the Nats. I liked it. Yankees claim Jordan Groshans. Good depth move. Angels, Drew Pomeranz. I really like that one. I thought it went under the radar, and I thought it was a good move by the Angels. Something I thought maybe other teams should have pounced on. Daniel Bard, kind of a big blow to the Rockies, big blow to the trade market if he does come back and is not the way he used to be. White Sox signing some relievers. I thought those were good moves. Again, I like what the White Sox are doing right now. I like what Chris Getz is doing. I like how they started off their rebuild. Rentaro Sasaki, something super fun to watch. See how he does at Stanford. See what happens in the future with this as well. And finally, Justin Verlander getting hurt. Big blow to the Astros. We knew this would happen, though he is older. So I don't think it's that much of a surprise, but it is a big blow to the Astros because he was going to be top of the rotation and what they did trade to end up getting him. So for the Astros' sake, let's hope he does get healthy again and become the Justin Verlander we all know and love, and he anchors the Astros rotation again. So thank you so much for tuning into the GSMC Baseball Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show. Leave a positive review. It really, really does help make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram for more content and updates. Thank you once again. Thank you for tuning in, and have a wonderful day. Goodbye.